Chapter 4. The covered moon will be very soon, and I fear for you. They had walked together to the spring, and Aneth was talking in a whisper, though no one else was around. Why? She asked, also feeling fear. There is much to know, and so little time. Well, if it's dangerous, I don't have to go. You said I could stay with you. Can't I still? What brought you to Wistira? I know now it wasn't the venture. Well, not exactly. Confused, she reviewed their conversations to see what she had let slip. Smiling sadly, Aneth commented, You said nothing to give yourself away, and in the nothing was the truth. They were sitting, and she watched the water come from what looked like a rock. I can't see you, child, but I can feel you, like I could feel Audie. You are good. Was she good? Why was that a confusing question? Where were these doubts coming from? I ask again, what brought you to Wistira? I don't know exactly. I was following the river and was afraid to leave it. Walking along the river was safe and constant. I could go back if I needed to. But the mountains called me. I know that sounds foolish, but they did. There is no foolishness in hearing the call, and that is why, like the river, you cannot stay or go back. You must go forward. Page break. Their time at the spring had been cut short by a family coming to get water, but home alone again, they continued their thoughts together. At the binding, you will be given a team. Do not squander that gift. Many, like I, foolishly, do not realize the gift it is. I will try, Aneth, but I don't know anything about what the venture even is. Can you please tell me everything? Some things you must not know. It is better that way. Since the sisters, have others not returned? She could feel her fear being vocalized. She could see the tears that came instantly to Anne's sightless eyes. Yes, child. The answer had come quickly, but no other words came as Aneth's tears wet her maroon dress, making 2 black circles on her chest. She left her chair to kneel beside Aneth. Moved by Aneth's grief, she threw her arms around Aneth's shoulders and laid her head on the wet spots, their tears blending. Truly touched for the first time in many years, Aneth's grief came forward, telling a tale she had no words to convey. Long after the sobs subsided, she stayed. Thank you, child, Aneth whispered. She sat back on her heels and looked at Aneth. They both knew they were smiling at each other. There is much to tell. Are you sure? It can wait. No, Tilly. It has been long enough. Using her dress to wipe the last tears, she spoke deliberately. Most who set out on the venture return. Some come from miles around to test their bravery and skill. Why didn't she know anyone who had gone on the venture? Nature has its own way of assisting. The Somna summer is once every 10 years, and no one past 2 Somna summers may go. Most remember their first moon covering, but some do not. So young. A sad smile pulled at her lips. Continuing slowly, she said, Some towns prevent their children from the venture. They don't speak of Wistira and keep no records, like Khalid. No one has come from Khalid in 7 Somna summers. Other towns, like Balig, teach their children about the great risks, but allow them to choose. Here and there, people find Wistira as you did, and those close enough to know no difference, it just is. From the second day after the moon covering till the night it is uncovered is all the time you will be given, but you would want no more. Why must we wait till the second day to start? Time. Time to say goodbye. Time to prepare. Time. But if everyone knows who is going, why don't they say their goodbyes before that and just start the next day? You will see, and then you will understand. Not satisfied, but knowing that was all she would receive, she asked, "Why would I want no more time? Wouldn't more time help in the search?" You will see, and then you will understand. Trying not to be frustrated, she focused on asking a question with a different answer. In doing so, she remembered a time she had asked Palef a question that had been answered with a similar feeling. She had asked Palef why she hadn't ever married or had children. Too young to understand the weight of her question, she did recognize it as the only time Palef's face did not have the look of calm control she was so accustomed to. She knew it had taken her off guard, but quickly recovered as she said, "Never ask about things you do not understand." She had not thought about that since, and wondered why she was thinking of it now. Poor Palef. What had become of her? She felt ashamed that she was only now wondering what had become of her. "I didn't hear you get up. Have you fallen asleep?" Aneth asked, her head tipped to the side. "No, I'm awake." "I'm glad. Do you wish to continue?" "Yes, please." "After the binding, you will," she interrupted, not wanting to miss any advice. "Do I need to know anything about the binding?" "No. They will tell you about it there," Aneth continued. "After the binding, you will be in groups. All of the groups will have similar tasks until the inner challenge. Do not ask me what that means. Just know that most go home before the inner challenge, and you will get to choose if you continue. Few make it past the inner challenge, and none have made it through what comes after the inner challenge." "How far did you get?" "Odie and I made it to the inner challenge," she said flatly. "How many have made it through the inner challenge?" "You are asking the wrong questions." With that, she rose, ending the discussion. The village's excitement had grown daily, and the projected moon covering would be in the next night or two. She was helping Aneth when she saw Roan a few booths down. Seeing him reminded her that she did not know how to answer the question of where she was from. When there was a break in customers, she softly touched Aneth's elbow and whispered, "Where should I say I am from?" Whispering back, Aneth replied, "I have been thinking about that. You may say Khaled. No one has come from there or gone there in many years. They will not know if your answer is truthful." Moments later, Roan came to their booth. "Greetings, Aneth and Tilly." "Hello," she answered shyly. Aneth smiled and complimented him on remembering Tilly's name. "Well, there is a 1 in 3 chance Tilly and I will be on the same team." He was very natural in his mannerisms, and she felt less worried than she had moments before. Smiling, he asked, "Did you remember where you are from, Tilly?" Aneth interjected quickly, "Do you know the only thing worse than losing your eyesight, Roan?" A sad smile and a gentle response. "No, Aneth, I don't. It's losing your memory. Tilly is from Khaled, as I am." "Well, that must be very nice for both of you. Did they send their best wishes to you from back home?" "No," Aneth replied truthfully. "They do not know I am here." "Then I am extra glad you found each other. Good luck preparing. I will see you at the moon covering." Page break. The moon covering had been projected correctly, and it was that night. Most of the village was in the marketplace, and excited chatter could be heard from all sides. "I lied today, Tilly." There are much worse things than losing your sight or memory. Secrets. Secrets that never go away. Unsure of how to respond, she wove her arm through Aneth's. A hush fell over the crowd as the moon covering began. It seemed eerily beautiful watching the light be slowly covered in black. She was familiar with the cycle of the moon, but there was something different in watching the full moon be covered and knowing it would stay covered for many days. She shuddered and whispered to Aneth, "It has started." "I know. I can feel it." Looking back up at the moon, she remembered the last time she had seen it covered. She had to have been about 7, but somehow felt much younger. Paleth had gone on a trip, and that had terrified her. Watching the moon through her young eyes, she saw how worried she had been that Paleth would not return. But she had. Paleth never went on another trip. Walking back to their home was hard without any light from the moon. She had protectively taken Aneth's arm, but now realized Aneth was leading her smoothly down the path. "Thank you, Aneth. Some good comes from all bad." Page break. "Wake up, Tilly. It's preparation day." The sun had not begun to rise, and the covered moon gave no light. Groggily, she asked, "Now?" "It's time." Stumbling to get dressed, she followed Aneth outside. "Where are we going?" she asked, wishing she had brought her shawl. Wrong question. "What are we doing?" Still wrong. Tired and frustrated, she walked with Aneth in silence. Looking up at the moonless sky, knowing it was there somewhere, gave her an indescribable feeling. They walked to the creek. "Get in." Awake, but not believing what she heard, she asked, "What?" Aneth chuckled. Still wrong question. "Why?" "Because it is," she laughed again, "but you still need to get in." "I don't understand." "I know. And as I said before, some things you will understand, some things you won't. This one is simple. Everyone bathes before the binding." Thoughts of the wash bucket at the house and the warm fire came to her mind, but respecting the process, she got in. The water jolted her. It was summer, but the water was still cold, and her memories attacked her as she went deeper to lie down in the freezing water. She quickly used the soap to scrub herself. "Hashad, you are in danger." Fear clawed at her. Vulnerable, she looked around, seeing nothing. She could hear herself over the creek, breathing in short, jagged breaths. "Father, Hashad," stifling a scream. She froze in the water, unable to move. Through the darkness came Aneth's voice. "Forward, child. Like the river, move forward." Knowing she was not alone in the dark helped her move towards the voice. She stumbled up the creek bed, her arms stretched out. Aneth's firm hand reached hers and gave her a blanket to wrap in. "You must fight the feelings that you are not safe." Page break. Warm in the wash basin, between the privacy screen and the fire, she replayed the experience at the creek. She felt as if she were living completely different lives. None of them made any sense. "Is the water warm enough?" Aneth asked from beyond the screen. "Yes, thank you." She wanted to ask why she had to bathe in the creek if the wash bucket would work. She had only been compliant because she thought it was part of the procedure, not just a form of torture. Each part of the preparation day has a purpose. Not all steps are followed by all people, but I feel there is much to be discovered when all the steps are taken, Aneth said, as if reading her mind. Purpose. What purpose does being frozen and terrified serve? Page break. "I am bringing in a present," Aneth said from behind the screen. "I promise not to look." She walked in, carrying a beautiful sage green dress. "I hope it fits, and that you like the color." It's wonderful. Thank you. Minutes later, she came out dressed in her gift. I love it, she said as she bent down to kiss Aneth's cheek. I picked green because it reminds me of growth and strength. Who helped you get ready for the venture, Aneth? Confused, Aneth asked. Do you mean who helped me get the dress? No. When you were preparing for the venture, who helped you? The binders help those who don't have someone. She wanted to ask more questions, but instead started to brush her wet hair. Sit. I will do your hair today. Long brush strokes reminded her of when Palef did her hair. Sit still, Maeve, and learn patience. Many of the activities they did were meant to practice patience. She could hear Palef saying, if you can master your tongue and your mind, your body will follow. She wondered how many of those things, if any, she had mastered. Patting her shoulders, Aneth exclaimed, there, a proper princess. Aneth had no mirror, but peering into a pot, she could see part of the crown of braids on her head. Thank you, Aneth. You have been so kind. Now, for the tea ritual. The tea ritual? Okay, I am teasing about the tea being a ritual, but we could use some tea, don't you think? Walking to the hearth, Aneth ran her hand along the top, past where she kept the tea to the small wooden box at the end of the hearth. Taking it down with both hands, she opened it gently and smelled the content. Lavender, Odie's favorite. She smiled, thinking lavender seemed a soft flavor for who she imagined to be a large and strong man. What else did Odie like? Surprisingly, very little of what I liked, Aneth answered as she poured the water into the teapot. What do you mean? Odie came from a family of singers, and he loved to sing. I have heard choked chickens sound better than my singing, but I loved to listen to him sing. He liked calm things, like reading and thinking. He had an inner calm that allowed him to be still. I never felt still, except when I borrowed his. Bringing the tea to the table, Aneth began to hum. Is that a song Odie would sing? Startled out of her reverie, Aneth only nodded. What's its name? The Ballad of Balag. Please hum some more. Something about it had seemed familiar. Aneth's humming felt sad. Where had she heard that sad song? She began to hum along. How do you know that song? I'm not sure. Do you know the words? Aneth spoke them in a hushed tone. Rivers and rolling hills, reaching for the sky. Seek the mountains to which the birds fly. I'll be waiting here for your return. To tell me the stories I've yet to learn. They finished together. I know that song. The stable hand sang it. Odie loved to sing it. His father sang it to him when he left for the venture. The only song he sang more was the one he wrote for me. Page break. Aneth had swept the floor twice and adjusted the chairs several times. Do you have everything? Aneth asked anxiously. What would I need? Everything that is yours, just in case. She wanted to ask in case of what, but instead looked around and reconfirmed she only had her old dress and wouldn't need it. As they left the house, she knew it was early in the afternoon, but it felt so much later because she had woken so early. Why had they woken so early? It didn't seem necessary if bathing and dressing were the only preparation steps. They walked slowly towards the woods. The only other people she saw were a family with 3 children. 2 seemed close to her age, but the youngest child looked around 12. She wondered if he would be going on the venture, or if he was going to say goodbye to his siblings. Time. That was what Aneth had said preparation day was about. Time to prepare and say goodbye. Had she prepared properly? Was she ready? Wearing a beautiful dress and having her hair plaited did feel nice, but she wasn't sure they had prepared her for anything. They walked silently through the woods, eventually coming to a meadow. "Do you see a row of cloaks?" Aneth asked tensely. Scanning the meadow upon arriving, she had been surprised to see them. "Yes." "Take me to them." They appeared to be the only people in the meadow, though there were many stumps out as if for sitting. "Your cloak is very important. It will serve many purposes, so be wise in your selection." "What purposes should I consider when selecting?" "I cannot say more than I have. Once you have selected it, you are to put it on and go sit. Clear your mind of anything that is bothering you. You must be calm at the binding. When you are ready to go to the binding, they will come for you." With that, Aneth started back out of the meadow. "Where are you going?" she asked, startled. "Home." "You aren't going to stay and help me?" "I can't." "Why?" Wrong question. What is the right question? No answer. "Okay. I will see you tonight after the binding." No response. "Thank you, Aneth." Aneth walked away. She watched her walk away. She hoped after the binding to get many more answers. The venture would start tomorrow, and she did not feel ready. She turned back to the cloaks and saw they were arranged by height. It was a warm day, so putting on a cloak and sitting under the sun did not sound good. But the nights would be cold, so she knew she would pick a cloak that would also serve as a blanket. She did not know how far she would be traveling or in what type of terrain, but she wanted something light, so she wouldn't be slowed down. It wouldn't snow, but it could rain, so something that could resist the water. She walked towards the longest cloaks with her basic idea of what she wanted. Not so long as to trip on it if hiking, but long enough for protection from the elements. Every cloak had a hood, but there were different kinds of hoods. She was starting to feel overwhelmed. Why all the frustrating unknowns? How was she supposed to pick the right cloak if she didn't know what she was picking it for? Why the secrecy about the binding and the venture and Aneth's past? If she knew the answers to her questions, she wouldn't be so overwhelmed by choosing a simple cloak. It was simple, wasn't it? Why couldn't it just be simple? Or at least one part of it? At least something as common as a cloak should not elicit such a frustrating feeling. Her head was bowed in frustration. She knew she shouldn't let herself get upset about a foolish cloak, and was ashamed of how upset she was. Just pick a cloak, any cloak, and make it work. Overthinking something foolish had led to more foolishness. Had to lead to more foolishness. Aneth had to know how frustrating her lack of advice was. Was she trying to prove something to her? "Oh, here," she said mockingly, "pick a cloak that so much rests upon, but don't pick the wrong one, or you will regret it. And no, I can't help you choose it." It was stupid. The whole thing was stupid. Where was everyone else? If she could watch somebody pick a cloak, that would be really helpful, or at least she would know she wasn't alone at this supposedly vital junction. Fine. I will just grab the first one my hand touches and deal with whatever consequences come from not being smart enough to get the right one. She saw herself sitting on a stool in the kitchen back home. Paleth had her hands behind her back. "Concentrate, Maeve. You know the pattern." Only she didn't know the pattern. She had guessed correctly each time, and Paleth had been very pleased with her guesses. She did not want Paleth to know she had guessed. She had looked at Paleth's shoulders for a clue and studied Paleth's face for any help, but had realized she didn't know. And soon Paleth would know she didn't know, and how stupid she was. Tired of the charade, she went against her instinct, hoping the game would end. "Your right hand." She saw Paleth's eyes twitch very slightly, and a look of confusion momentarily clouded her eyes. An almost indistinct lowering of Paleth's shoulders, and then she brought forth her right hand, holding the blue marble. "You did it again. Good job." She felt Paleth watch her face to see her reaction. She had given her none, but now wondered what that had told Paleth. The confusion of the memory only added to her despondency. She mocked herself for the pathetic amount of time she had wasted choosing a cloak when she could be sitting on a dumb log right now, clearing her empty mind. The harshness of her feelings stood out to her. This is not me. What is going on? She took a deep breath and raised her head to the sky. Slowly letting her breath out, she spoke to him. I'm sorry. I haven't spoken to you in a few days. Calmness. I don't expect you to tell me what to do. I just needed to remember I'm not alone. The tension in her lungs left with her next exhale. She lowered her head to look at the cloaks again and brought her attention to the options. They were all well made and sturdy. She chose a long, dark gray one with a full hood and base. Trying it on, she liked the weight of it. She walked in it and found the flow very soothing. Something about it made her feel protected and braver. She walked to the first stump and sat. Why had that been so hard? She breathed deeply, happy with her selection, and looked around the still empty meadow. 2 happy white butterflies chased each other, and their flittering buoyed her spirits. The sun was overhead, and she tilted back her head to feel its warmth. She could stay there all day. Something was trying to come to her thoughts, but she pushed it away. Looking up at the sun again, she was surprised at how far it had moved in just a moment. Again, she looked at the sun. Why did it seem so far from where it had just begun? About to close her eyes again, she felt a stirring in her mind. Like the wings of the little white butterflies, it drew her attention. What do you want, little mind butterfly? Focusing more on it, she felt her mind wake ever so slightly. Gently, but deliberately, she visualized the butterfly. It was sitting on a flower, its wings opening and closing. She liked watching it sit there on the beautiful flower. Suddenly, it flew away. The movement brought her out of her thoughts. Noticing the sun was even farther across the sky, she now understood how much time had passed. It had felt like moments, but must have been hours. Why hadn't anyone come to get her? Where was everyone else? A moment of concern was replaced with remembering what Aneth had told her. She was to clear her mind and be calm, and when she was ready, they would come get her. She knew the mountain had called her. This understanding seemed to settle in her body. Reaching back, she pulled her hood on, and in so doing, she felt as if a crown had been placed on her head. Immediately, the meadow changed. There were people everywhere. Many families were huddled together, saying their goodbyes. Lines of people were standing in front of the cloaks. Almost all of the stumps had people sitting on them. She could see the backs of their heads, all but one. One had their hood blocking their face, and someone in purple stood next to them. The purple item next to her caught her attention, and she quickly turned her head to look. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. I just arrived. The woman smiled kindly. I am here to take you to the binding. Will you please follow me? Standing to follow, but looking again at what moments before had not been there, she wondered what had just happened and what would become of the others. You need not worry. When they are ready, they will come. We all must choose when we are ready. How long would they have to choose? What if, like her, the time went and they didn't know it was going? She wanted to wake them. It seemed unfair now that she understood not to tell the others. What if they missed the binding? Would they miss the venture? You need not worry, the lady spoke again. None of them are alone. She looked again and saw everyone in the meadow had varying amounts of light swirling around them. It was beautiful. Come, the lady beckoned.